Magic!
Stu!
Magic!
Stu!
Magic!
Stu!
Magic?
Stu? What's up, Ted?
What's up, Bill?
San Dimas High School football rules!
Rules!
That was fantastic. That was everything I've ever wanted in an intro, honestly. Just two dudes jumping into chairs and yelling quotes from 80s movies.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It has, and I've got some splaining to do,
We're
which
not
I
dead.
will do in another video. And it's going to be probably a little more detailed and than I would want it to be on this channel. And it'll probably piss my wife off if she sees it. But I feel like our viewers really need to know what happened, especially the people who won the contest, who your stuff is still sitting in my office. So that's been a complete nightmare. And what we want to do today, we're going to record several sessions of Hotseat for Dominaria. And
Cracker packs?
do some cracker packs and let those videos trickle out over the next probably 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So
Can I do my short explanation of where I've been?
yeah, totally.
So I switched careers. I am teaching now, which is awesome. But I took over for a after-school program that was kind of struggling to make its quotas. And so I had like 25 at-risk kids that I absolutely love and adore who are basically my children now, and I love them. But I was working like 60-hour weeks in the first 4 days of a week, and then going to school part-time, and then also working another job. So yeah, that happened. Other people's kids happened, which was cool, and I love it. But that's where I've been. I'm not dead. I promise. I sprained my hand. Yeah. So
and really, it wasn't bad timing either
No,
because
no,
of the
it
stuff that
really-
was going on
yeah.
here. So
it was kind of one of those things where both of us were just like, oh,
Yeah.
so this is life.
yeah, and,
This
and
is
Garrett,
fun.
Garrett, who you may recall from one or two videos,
His one video
He,
is legitimately
he
his one
at
video.
FNM yesterday. No, it was Friday.
yeah.
What day is it today? Jesus, wow,
Wednesday?
Oh.
It's
So
Wednesday,
I work
my
retail. I
dudes.
have no idea what day of the week it is. So Garrett on Friday asked me, "So is the channel dead?" I was like, "It's not dead.
We're
It's just
hibernating.
napping." Yeah.
Yeah, which is fitting because they spoiled the Bear Legendary for
Yes.
M19. Honestly, it looks like the best core set ever. We'll probably have a video on that at some point.
I am so mad
I'm
that
hype
I
as balls
did
right
not
now, dude.
take off work for pre-release 2019.
I will not be at pre-release 2019 either. Dude, the mind is willing, but the flesh is way too weak to do midnight pre-releases anymore. Honestly, the Battle Bond pre-release was like an absolute godsend because it was on a weekend in the middle of the afternoon, and I was able to do both drafts,
Nice.
which was or both
I
events.
did
They're
not get to
drafts.
play
They
Battle
were
Bond. I wish I could have.
amazing. Go draft it, play it in sealed, pack war it. I don't care what you do with it. It's so good. It's so good.
I think people should set up Battle Bond cubes.
I think people should definitely set up Battle Bond cubes. Is this a Battle Bond cube?
No.
Is this
Dominaria.
hot seat? Yeah, it is. It's hot seat. We knew it was coming. I knew it
All
was
right.
coming.
So
Sorry.
we've got.
So-
I was going to take. Yeah, go ahead and explain while I
So,
randomize.
for those of you who have never been to the channel, or for those of you who may have forgotten during our long absence what a hot seat is, Liam has selected a number of uncommons from Dominaria. I will be breaking down how effective those uncommons are in limited, from a scale of 1 being the absolute worst, utter dumpster fire, complete and total garbage. Just trying to think of a good analogy for it, but I am absolutely fried. But a 5 is the greatest thing ever, a total bomb, something like Charging Monster Sword from Ixalan counts towards this slot. Multani from Dominaria right now is a 5. I don't think anyone will dispute that. Well, there's probably a couple people that will dispute that, but they're wrong. they're allowed to be wrong. When Ben Stark is like, this card's a mistake, you can usually be like, yeah, that's pretty good. Tetsamok as well from Rivals of Ixalan, if you guys remember that rare. Also a bomb. Very hard for an uncommon to reach bomb status in a set, but you never know. So they're all pretty good. We like to do uncommons because there's a lot of content on really bomby rares and on really good commons. So uncommons sort of slipped through the cracks, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Been
So
a
we're
while.
going to be rating them from 0, technically 1 to 5, but
1 to
sometimes
5.
we get a 0. I don't want to do 0.5s anymore. It just
No.
makes it hard on the graphics.
No 0.5s.
I mean, I guess we really could if you really need
No,
to.
no. It's all right. You're just challenging me. It's all good. I mean, it's.
Sometimes you have to round it up or down.
You know what?
Sometimes you have to.
I liked having a little bit of nuance.
Sometimes you have to put those little 0.5s in the concentration camps, and
We're not getting political.
no, we're not.
We're not getting political. We just got back. We don't. People are just now realizing that we're still alive. Let's not.
All
Some
right,
colors.
let's regain
Okay.
composure.
Regaining. I'm still keeping. All right. Regaining composure, as if we were ever composed to begin with. Regaining what passes as a semblance of composure.
This is us coming back from a cut where I made inappropriate political jokes that we don't want on our channel that had to do with some of our uncommons
good
and
lord.
the 0.5
The
system.
point is that we're not doing 0.5s anymore. And
we
then-
can if you really want to.
No. It's okay.
fine.
Let's try it. No, let's try it. We'll see if leave us a message in
So-
the comments. Let us know if you like
Yeah.
it with the 0.5s or
Let
without the
Dominaria
0.5s.
be the test set for that.
I will say right now, there are a couple things. I will most likely do a draft boot camp video on it. There's another reason that I have not done a draft boot camp video in a while is that I have been getting my ass kicked in Dominaria, and it is a set that is unlike any Magic set that has come out in the last 5 years, probably, in
Yeah.
terms of limited environment. So I've had to unlearn and relearn how to draft, which has been an
Wow.
absolute treat because I'll be honest, I was getting sick of going.
It's
to FNM.
challenging for, I've noticed
I
that.
was getting sick of going to FNM and doing the exact same thing every single time across every single set. Draft 6 to 8 2-drops, draft a couple removal on curve, beat everybody
And-
because your curve is really good.
And the first
Lather,
few
rinse,
times
repeat.
that Kyle started losing the draft games, I really felt like the table was going to be flipped for the first few times. He didn't know what to do.
I was so
he
confused.
always wins.
I was so not. I wasn't mad. To be honest, it was so just it's so weird to feel happy that you're losing. Which sounds like, especially because I'm a spike and just the biggest spike imaginable where I love to win. But draft was getting so boring for me because it was literally this is the same formula every time to succeed. And I noticed that when I tried that formula, which has been applicable across Ixalan and Kaladesh and Amonkhet, and basically I can't remember the last time I drafted cons probably. Not even Fate Reforged, but cons. Triple cons was probably the last time that I drafted a deck that was ambitious or different.
Okay.
So it's been a long time, and to lose and to understand that there's a ton of depth and nuance and complexity to this draft environment has been just an absolute treat. I don't like losing, but it's been enjoyable to show up and realize that I have a different kind of puzzle to crack every single time that I play draft, and I think that's in a large part of why I fell in love with the format in the first place. Was it's a different puzzle every single time, and it feels like that for the first time, probably, since 2014. It's probably been 4 years since I felt this way about a draft format.
Yeah,
So
this is a great set.
it is. It's phenomenal. So even losing, I have to say I'm pretty pumped.
Yeah.
It's like I'm losing
this,
all the time.
This
We're
set
still
has-
getting
This has
some
been a
wins every
horrible
now and
time
again.
for our channel to have to take a hiatus
Yeah,
because so much good stuff is going on.
yeah. The
with
return
that-
of promos.
Yeah.
What?
And they're beautiful promos.
They're beautiful promos that actually may or may not have longer reaching applications. Cast Down is playable in Modern.
Yeah.
Opt is playable in Modern. Shauna is probably fringe playable in Modern in some capacity. Sorry.
At least
I digress.
Commander or something. But
Yeah.
All right. So we have 5 uncommon cards randomly chosen from my stack of Dominaria uncommon
I have
cards.
never seen any of these before. I have no
I
idea
am
what's
handing
coming.
these to Kyle in random order.
I don't know what this is. This is the magic motion. I should never be allowed.
That's how you stir
I
the
should-
magic stew.
I should never be allowed to be aware. It's a magic stew. We need a Talarian milkshake, just
Yes.
a bunch of different wizard themed food
Mhm.
names. Our first uncommon
For the
is
cookbook that we
for the
didn't
cook that
mention
will eventually happen
That,
at some point.
we didn't ever say it was actually a cookbook until now.
Yeah, it's okay. This is Lingering Phantom. It is 6 mana, so 5 colorless and 1 black for a 5/4 spirit creature. It says whenever you cast a historic spell, for those of you not in the know, artifacts, legendaries, and sagas are all historic spells. You may pay 1 black mana. If you do, return Lingering Phantom from your graveyard to your hand. I have to say, I like Lingering Phantom. I think it's a fine card. I think it's a passable card. However, in a deck that has a lot of 6-drops, I don't think I would play it. There are a couple instances where you would like to play a card like Lingering Phantom. For example, there is the possibility of drafting a black-red control deck in Dominaria that's, I think, the 3rd best archetype. I've been watching a ton of Ben Stark coverage because Ben Stark, who routinely will put out 2 draft videos a set, is on like draft video number 9 for Dominaria, which is amazing because he's the best drafter in the world. So it's been really cool to like watch him explore this as I'm exploring it, which is pretty cool. So the black-red control deck is actually excellent, but it usually runs a couple historic spells and needs a finisher. It often relies on a ton of removal to survive the early game and then brings stuff back with recursion. And this is Lingering Phantom is its own way of recursion. I do have to say I'm going to give this. See, this is why I love the 0.5s, because I want to give this a 3 is about average, I think. And so I'm going to give it a 3 since we're not doing the 0.5s. I'm going to give it a 3. It's about average. I don't think you're going to be very pleased, like if you're 4th picking a Lingering Phantom. But if this gets passed to me like 8th or 10th, sure. I actually like it a bunch, and it's a semi-reliable finisher. There's not a ton of ways to exile cards in this set, so if you have like 4 or 5 historic triggers to bring Lingering Phantom back, and you're just trading it off for your opponent's ground creatures and removal spells, if the game is grinding out to a point where that matters, which Dominaria drafts tend to get to a grindy state, it's not bad. I don't mind it. I don't hate that card.
And from my experience, I would recommend not drafting specifically for historic spells. Unless you just are noticing that you're getting past a ton of them, which should not happen, because a lot of people have the mindset that I need to grab up all the historic spells of these colors that I'm looking at.
It's interesting. I think the time to grab the most historic spells, I think, is when you crack open, and this will be something that we discuss a little bit too with Draft Bootcamp, but is when you open a premier historic card. For example, if you pick one of Arvad, the Cursed, who is a 3/3 legendary vampire with Death Touch and Lifelink that gives all of your legendary creatures +2/+2, all of a sudden that bumps up and the priority for historic creatures or spells and creatures that will trigger historic for you.
Right.
But, like, for example, if you're first picking Danatha, which is the 3-mana 2/2 with Lifelink, First Strike, and Vigilance. Yes.
Yep.
Historic spell in mono white. You don't really care necessarily. You can be like the red-white equipment deck or the black-white historic deck.
Right.
So again, this is what we talk about. This set's very complicated, so I love it. Just don't go out of your way to pick as much historic up. You would much rather pick up a small group of quality historic cards over a bunch of really crappy ones. And if you notice there's only crappy ones, go for quality picks.
Yep.
Much like our next card, which is Knight of Malice.
Nice.
Which is amazing. So Knight of Malice is 2 mana, 1 colorless, 1 black for a 2/2. Not a 2/1. I thought this was a 2/1 the first time I played against it, and I tried to ping it. It did not die, because you should read the card always. To a 2/2 human knight with First Strike, hexproof from white, which is an interesting way to do hexproof. I much prefer this over the flat hexproof.
Over protection or...
No, total hexproof.
Or just total hexproof.
Yeah, because hexproof's a terrible mechanic. But so this creature can't be the target of white spells or abilities your opponents control. And Knight of Malice gets +1/+0 as long as any player controls a white permanent. I am not even going to try and space this out. This is a 4. Knight of Malice is a phenomenal card.
Yeah.
Now, something that I want to reiterate here is that 2-drops are generally worse in Dominaria than they have ever been before. All right? And again, this is something I had to relearn coming fresh off of drafting Ixalan week in and week out.
Where with Ixalan, you wanted as many 2-drops
if you didn't have
as you
10
possibly
2-drops in your deck, you were probably dead. Like before the game even started, which is ridiculous. But 2-drops in this set, it's still important to have, 4 or 5 things to play on the low end of your curve. Like vanilla 2/2s in this set are so bad that it's almost laughable. And Knight of Malice, however, is not a vanilla 2/2. Knight of Malice is a aggressive, cheap threat with not 1, not 2, but 3 relevant abilities in the late game. especially if your opponent is in white, or if you control white permanents to trigger that extra +1/+0. A 2-mana 3/2 with first strike is a pretty big game at any point.
And if your white card
honestly.
happens to be a Quende, now he's a 3/2 double strike.
Oh, Quende's so good. It also has the coolest name out of any like Quende is the best name. Like, fight me in the street about it. It's so good. It's so good.
Sounds like the sequel to a.
He sounds like a character from like Black Panther.
Yeah.
Like if you told me that like one of the tribal chieftains was named Quende and he showed up with like 2 vibranium daggers, I'd be like, yeah, no, I'd buy this. This is sweet. I just watched that movie over the weekend, so. But Quende is awesome. But Knight of Malice, I actually think is about equally awesome. I would rank it at a 4. This is one of the few 2-drops in this set that I would certainly pick first if I had the opportunity to do so. Definitely a great card. A 4 for the Knight of Malice. Our next card is Triumph of Gerard, which is the first saga that we've ever reviewed on a hot seat, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
So it's 2 mana, so it's 1 colorless and a white for an enchantment saga. So as this saga enters, and after your draw step, add a lore counter. Sacrifice after 3, so after you put your 3rd lore counter on it. So for number 1 and 2, so for the 1st and 2nd lore counter that you place on Triumph of Gerard, you're going to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control with the greatest power. And then number 3, target creature you control with the greatest power gains flying, first strike, and lifelink until end of turn. This is a card that I wrongly evaluated when I first started the set. I thought this ability was going to be a lot stronger than it actually wound up being. I thought that there was enough with this card to sort of turn one of your creatures into a powerhouse. That
And you certainly can.
You would want to play it. But there's a lot that works against this card. Flexibility is one of the most important things in a Magic card. And it's almost forcing you to put your +1/+1 counter on a card with the greatest power is actually a much bigger drawback than it sounds. Because this means that if you have a creature with a relevant ability like Death Touch, for example, and you want to put that +1/+1 counter on it because you know that your opponent won't block the creature with Death Touch, so it lets you sneak in a couple extra points of damage, you can't really do that. This is especially true if like your creature with the greatest power is a 2/2 or a 3/3, and you go to put a +1/+1 counter on it with Triumph of Gerard, and it has to sit there at your opponent, looking at your opponent's 6/6 across the board. Right?
Until it gets the ability to fly, which
is great, but it only gets those abilities till end of turn.
Till end of turn, yes.
And sure, you can sneak in a ton of damage, but by that point you've invested 3 turns into a creature. And something that's very important to understand is that this card does not exist in a vacuum. This set has, and I'm going to go on record and say this, the best suite of removal spells in a draft set than we have seen in a long time. Easily, at common, you have things like Blessed Light, which exiles a creature at instant speed. You have Eviscerate, which kills a creature at sorcery speed for 4 mana. You've got Fiery Intervention for 5 damage, just blows somebody out of the water. You've got targeted like sideboard cards like Pierce the Sky to do 7 damage to your flying creature.
What's the white one? The Gideon.
Gideon's Reproach for 4 damage as well. At uncommon, you have stuff like Seal Away and Cast Down. You've also got Vicious Offering at common as well. This is a set that is defined by its great single target removal spells, and Triumph of Gerard puts all of it on a single target, which is bad.
And really, all somebody has to do is the turn before that creature's about to become a flying lifelink dude, they turn it into a 0/4 wall with no abilities.
Right. Oh, that's right. Flash Freeze is also in this set at common as well. Or they just wait and then at instant speed, Blessed Light your guy. Or at sorcery speed, Fire Intervention, the one dude that has the greatest power on the board. Suddenly your Llanowar elf has flying first strike and lifelink. It's a 2.
Bottom line with that card is if you get lucky, it's great. But you can't count on getting lucky.
Right.
You have to play with stuff.
Or if your deck is so creature heavy that Triumph of Gerard is just always going to find a relevant way to make itself work.
Right.
But those are both 2 very niche cases.
Like if you could have an 11/5 flying frog.
Sure. Or if you have Yargle. Yes. I love Yargle. Yargle's the greatest. But seriously, this is a card that I think is one that you'll play in your draft deck, but it takes a lot to make it work. I rank this at a 2. I think this is a below average draft card. I stand by that, I think. Although it sucks because I love the art, and Gerard is one of, if not my favorite character in all of Magic.
Really?
So I love Gerard.
Nice.
Gerard's great. Complex heroes are awesome. Hate the Gatewatch. God, the Gatewatch suck. Sorry if you're a Gatewatch fan. I apologize. Miss Garrick. Our next card is Amaranthine Wall, which is 4 mana for a colorless artifact creature wall with Defender. It has 0/6, and it says Amaranthine Wall gains indestructible until end of turn. This card is utter garbage. I rank it at a 1 for a number of different reasons. So this isn't a set where a 4 mana 0/6 creature is going to do anything. Indestructible is not a very useful keyword on a card like this. The fact that you have to pay 2 mana to give it indestructible is nigh on insulting. This is a set with a ton of evasion and really great ways to sneak in damage. For example, stuff like Tetsuko Umezawa exists to help your Saberlings sneak through a couple of points of damage. There are tons of flyers at common and uncommon that are just wonderful. Everything from Academy Drake to Cloud Reader Sphinx are fantastic cards.
And not to mention Arcane Flight to make something else.
Arcane Flight to do that. You can Keldon Overseer to steal this if you really want. Or just Keldon Overseer to steal one of their other blocking creatures that actually threatens to kill one of your attacking creatures. There's so much in this set that's going to let you sneak by Amaranthine Wall that it doesn't matter. If this was a mid-range creature-sized block, sure. If this thing had indestructible as a keyword attached to it,
sure.
Maybe.
Or even if it was a 1-drop 0/4 or something crazy, maybe.
If it was a 1-drop 0/4 artifact in this set, it would probably be worth playing. It would trigger Historic if you were a slower deck. The blue-white Historic deck or the blue-white Flyers deck in this format would actually love a 0/4 1-mana card that would trigger Historic.
Yeah.
But this is a 4-mana 0/6 with Defender and no relevant abilities. So it's not even like you can enchant this thing up. You know, if it's a 2-mana or a 1-mana 0/4 artifact creature, you could enchant it. You could put Triumph of Gerard on it if you desperately wanted to. There's a number of different ways that you could enhance that thing's power. Auras in this set, despite the suite of common removal, are actually pretty good.
They are.
I don't know if I like Arcane Flight so much in draft as I think other people do. I think they're overvaluing it. But on Sarah's Wings is busted.
It's a little expensive, but God, it's good.
No, it's busted. That if your creature survives a single combat, you've just swung the game dramatically in your favor.
True, yeah.
Because at that point, you've gained probably like 4 life. You've forced them to waste a removal spell, a premier removal spell on a creature that probably wasn't a premier creature to begin with. I'm just saying, it's real good. But Amaranthine Wall is not real good. Amaranthine Wall gets a 1. It is worth probably less than the cardboard that it's printed on. Who knows? Maybe one day there'll be an Amaranthine Wall tribal deck and I'll be proven wrong, but I doubt it. 4 mana is way too steep for a creature that does absolutely nothing. But
you know, at some point, Wizards is going to be like, wow, their channel's really good. Let's give them a promo card.
It's going to be
like
Amaranthine
a year later.
Wall.
It's going to, or like, yeah, like 5 years down the road from now, and it's going to be Amaranthine Wall. Like, they really liked that one, didn't
they'll
they?
reprint it in like Core Set 2021,
Right. Yep.
and they'll make me do it.
Yep.
It's just, that's the closest nerd equivalent to it. Puts the lotion on the skin,
Right?
Like it's literally just like, you want your promo card? You want your promo card and your love from Wizards? Time to get an Amaranthine Wall. Like, it's just terrible.
Yep.
But our last card is Garna, the Blood Flame, which who is in charge of naming the cards in this set? You did a spectacular job. I mean that with no sarcasm. Seriously, like, it is between Quende and Garna, the Blood Flame. God, this is good. Holy, I love it. So Garna, the Blood Flame, so 5 mana, 3 colorless, 1 black, 1 red, for a legendary creature human warrior with flash. And when Garna, the Blood Flame, enters the battlefield, return to your hand all creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from anywhere this turn. Other creatures you control have haste. This card is another card that I think goes incredibly well in the black-red control deck. Because if your opponent, by some miracle, kills a bunch of things, you can just flash them back in with Garna. But the most common thing that I've seen is that you make, what looks like a bad attack on paper, right? Just to sneak in some damage, right? Your opponent eats 2 or 3 of your guys, then they take 4 or 5 damage. from your littler creatures, or they block in a way that they think that you've got combat tricks, so they wind up eating a couple of your smaller guys, maybe letting 1 or 2 in, and then you flash Garnet in at the end of that combat step, and all of your guys are untapped and back on the battlefield, and you've snuck in some damage, you've potentially wasted some of your opponent's resources. You're not always going to want a card like Garnet. 5 mana is pretty pricey, especially for a 3/3, even a 3/3 with really relevant abilities, like incredibly relevant abilities.
Yeah.
But the potential for a blowout with Garnet is so vast that it's a card that you almost always have to respect. And it's an uncommon, too. It's not a rare, which means that you could easily see Garnet in a black-red deck. Plus, splashing is pretty common in this set because of how slow the set is. Now, it's more common in green than anything else, but if you've got 2 or 3 of those wonderful little surveyors, the 3-mana 1/2 that finds you a basic land in your hand, and you're in black, if you're in black-green, you can easily splash a mountain for Garnet if you're that kind of a grindy deck. Or if you're in, red-blue with a bunch of, which I don't recommend you're in unless you have a ton of wizards, but if you're in red-blue, for example, and you've got a couple of those surveyors, you can easily tutor up that swamp if Garnet is advantageous in your deck. And a lot of times, too, Garnet is worth splashing for, especially if you're a deck that lacks any sort of real power. Garnet is a great way to, I hate the term cheat out wins, but Garnet's a pretty good way to bring yourself back from the brink. Another great instance, too, is if your opponent alpha strikes you, knowing that, like, if your opponent is relatively low on life and they alpha strike you, thinking, he'll block, he has to make this block, and he'll lose, like, 3 or 4 creatures, and then he'll be dead next turn because I won't lose my guys, and I'm still alive because he has to block and lose these creatures, so I'm not dead on the crackback. It's incredible because, like, let's say, for example, you've got 3 3/3s, your opponent has 3 3/3s, right? Or 3 4/4s, or whatever. Your opponent's at 9 or 12.
Right.
You go block, you lose all of your creatures, you Garnet back in, and your opponent is completely tapped out because they thought you had no way.
And on your very next turn, you win.
Kill them, right, exactly. Which I've seen it happen.
Nice.
Yeah, it's like, I've never done it, I've never lived that dream, but I have seen it happen. Again, I missed my 0.5s. I don't think Garnet is as good as Knight of Malice, like on paper, but I think power level wise, I have to give Garnet a 4. I think Garnet is actually one of the historic uncommons that I would be happy to first pick or happy to see early in the draft because it knows that I know that I can structure some of my game plans around her. Maybe not first pick, but definitely one of the ones that I'd be the happiest to see. Like, if I see Garnet 8th or 9th pick, it lets me know something that perhaps this kind of deck, this grindy sort of black-red deck, or a black-red deck that's very hyper-aggressive and wants its creatures to die to go get value from Garnet, is a deck that is maybe worth watching. So I think for sure I'm going to put Garnet at a 4. Garnet gets her 4. I think she deserves it too.
I've passed that card over so many times just because I really wasn't seeing, and when you explained it the way that you did, that makes a heck of a lot of sense.
The first time that, like, I saw Garnet, I passed her by too, and then talking with a couple of the players, seeing it in action a couple of times, I'm like, this card has so many more applications. And Garnet is actually, if anything, one of the poster children, I think, for Dominaria, even if she's an unlikely one, because she's an example of that complexity that you have to delve a few layers deeper into to get at. Right. On paper, a 5-mana 3/3 with Flash, even one with a really powerful ability like that, seems useless because we have been conditioned by the last 5 or 6 years of Magic to think that a 5-mana 3/3 like that is useless.
Right.
And in fact, the number of cases that can be made for her power being useful or flexible, or that her impact on a board state is anything short of devastating, is huge. You can make a number of cases for that. But again, though, that's not something you would know unless you delved a little deeper into the format. So I think Garnet is actually a great one to end on. I give her a 4. You've earned it. You're in a 4 just for that sweet, sweet battle axe. That's actually really cool looking. But in any case, folks, hopefully you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Tell us how happy you are that we're back to the realms of the living, or maybe you're unhappy that we're back to being alive. And if you are, I mean, you're still watching, so thanks for the view. But of course, guys, make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe. We love you. We're glad to be back.
All right. See you in the next video, which we're going to record
In like
right now.